And welcome, everyone, to another episode of The Kuehl Show. I am your host today, the insider of the insiders, Tyler Kuehl. And yes, guys, don't panic. I don't have the beats on today. For some reason, I don't know if they died or they just stopped working. But, yeah, they're right here, completely useless at this point. Pooh Bear's, you know what? Pooh Bear's going to wear them right now. There we go. Pooh Bear can have them right there. There we go. I'm Tyler Kuehl on this Thursday edition of The Kuehl Show here on 12 Ounce Sports. Helter Skelter, as my guest today would like to say. But we got a lot to get to today. But before we get to all the action, Game 7 tomorrow, Game 6 tonight, coaches being hired that are making me question all my morals in life. But before we get to that, we got to thank our awesome sponsors here on 12 Ounce Sports, because you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or Zingo TV channel 761. Of course, you can go on there and use promo code 12 Ounce. That's the number 1, the number 2, the letter O, and the letter Z or Z for you improper English users. And as always, we got to thank our cool sponsors for this show today, and that includes mybookie.ag down there in the corner. You can see them there. Use the promo code 12 Ounce Sports, win and get paid. Sign up for free using the promo code, because you can bet on a lot of stuff right now. The NHL playoffs, only a couple teams left, possibly. Maybe we'll have the finals getting ready for Monday's show. That's going to be a fun one. But also the fact that you can bet on basketball, you can bet on baseball, I think you can bet on the College World Series if you want. I don't know why you would. I think you can bet on the Euro, which is a bonkers tournament as it is, but you can go on mybookie.ag, win and get paid on there. And as always, Second String Leather Company up there in the corner, hashtag crafted from the crease. Guys, I know we missed Father's Day, but it's okay. They got awesome deals on there for your wallets, your bathroom bags, your coasters, pillows, toques. They don't have raincoats yet, but here in West Michigan, you probably want one today, but you can get like a sticker to put on your raincoat so it can look like it's an official Second String Leather raincoat. SecondStringLeather.com, hashtag crafted from the crease. What we're going to get to today, children, well, let me tell you what we're going to get to today. We're going to talk about how the Islanders, like I said, we're not going to lose Game 6 at Nassau Coliseum. They were not going to lose their possible last game in that building, so there's a Game 7 tomorrow. And we're going to talk about if the Canadiens can actually do the thing for the first time in 28 years. I'm not going to say it yet because I don't want to jinx it, because everyone knows I will. And also, we're going to get into some news. A new coach, the first coach for the Seattle Kraken, has been named today. Kind of questioning myself, but I'll ask my guest what he thinks about that. And with that, let's bring him on in. Ladies and gentlemen, he is the captain of the Five Timers Club here on The Kuehl Show. He is the legendary broadcaster for Davenport ACHA Division I men's and women's hockey. He is a member of the In the Box podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Thomas Biondo.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
One of these days, Thomas, you're going to get the fireworks. As soon as I get my own place that I can, like do it outside and light up like bottle rockets in the background. Yeah, then you'll get the pyro then.
I look forward to it.
And
I very much look forward to that.
Well,
that'll be great.
Well, that'll actually be when you'll actually be there though. You'll like literally pan the camera to you walking in, and like it'll be like Gilbert from the old WWF, and like Alex will hold a sparkler and Katie will hold a sparkler as you walk like from the crappy garage we're gonna have or something.
Still, I'll take it. I'll take it. Sounds like a perfectly fine entrance to me.
It's better than the entrances we ever get, when we work at Davenport together. Then again, we never really had entrances. But Thomas, first of all, how are you, Thomas?
I'm well, Tyler. How are you doing, sir?
Well, it's wet today. It's supposed to be wet all weekend. Is it raining over there?
Not a good weekend.
No, not a good weekend to go. Is it raining by you yet?
It is not yet. It looks like the sky should be opening any moment now, but as of right now, we're looking okay.
Let's say you're in St. Clair, so you're a little north of town. Oh, there's the baby ducks walking across. I can see them now. See, that's the problem. We were talking about busting air conditioners before we went live today, and I've actually, for the last few days, I don't know how it is in St. Clair, Thomas, but I've had my windows open the entire time. Haven't had to touch the AC.
Yeah.
However, this stupid rain was going straight down for the longest time. Now it's going sideways, so I actually had to close my window because it was getting on my printer, and there's a painting that Kelly doesn't care for, but she has it anyways, and that was getting wet. Well, she said she doesn't care about it, and so I'm holding her to it. But anyways, yeah, I know.
I've been able to do windows at night. I've been able to go to sleep with the windows open, save a little cashola on the air conditioning. It is on now just because it's very humid on this side of the state. Humidity is off the charts, and it has been most of the day. So I'm sure that'll keep up. So it's going to be an air conditioning day today, to be sure.
Well, we've gone over this about 1,000 times. You hit Lansing on the east side, from the east side to the west side. That's literally a definitive line of how the weather is.
Yes,
Now,
completely different.
Now, if it were Saginaw, because the weather patterns always seem to go from like Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids up into the Bay, so like Saginaw and Midland up there. So they will get the same weather we do. However, for some reason, Detroit and all the southeast part of Michigan, Washtenaw County, Wayne County, it's like, you guys got snow. That's cool.
Yeah, we never. It's, driving over from St. Clair Shores over to Grand Rapids to do the games. It's amazing the difference that I can hit in Lansing. Right around the Okemos exit usually up until if actually not the Okemos exit, because if you the range is really there to about the 96 interchange.
Yeah.
Or the 69 interchange where 69 comes down. That 20-mile stretch, you never know what you're getting into, and then that's what's going to carry through to Grand Rapids.
It's weird. And Kelly and I bring it up all the time. The first Red Wings game, the first time we went to LCA together, was Toronto versus the Red Wings. It was the first year of LCA. She drove her minivan because I had my Lincoln Town car that's never good in snow. She drove it to, I would say, just past Lansing. I'm trying to think like the first exit, not Okemos, but after that, I'd say we get closer to Novi maybe.
Oh, okay.
And she stopped. We stopped at a rest stop. I drove in because she can drive downtown, but if I'm available, she prefers me to drive in.
Prefer not to. I get that. I absolutely get that.
And then on the way back, and I had to pull the morning shift. I was working at retail at the time, but I had to be at work at 4 a.m. So he said, all right, I'll drive out of town. We'll hit Lansing or something like that. We'll find a good place to stop, get gas, and you drive the rest of the way. So we stopped probably, I think, at that Okemos exit. We stop and get gas. I get in the passenger seat. She gets in the van. She starts driving the rest of the way. I fell asleep right away because I was exhausted. I woke up for like 2 seconds, and she was going 25 miles an hour in a blinding snowstorm.
Yeah.
And I still joke with her, but it's true. I went back to sleep thinking to myself, if I'm gonna die, I don't want to live through this. I don't want to be awake.
Yeah, you can be shocked. You can be shocked at that. Yeah, it's and I bet you over here it wasn't even snowing. So yeah,
no, it wasn't. It was drier than a fart coming from Detroit. It's incredible how different it is.
Yes, it is. No doubt about it.
So let's talk about the big news today, Thomas. Obviously, we'll get to the games here in just a little bit, but let's start off with the Seattle Kraken talk here. There was rumors galore. Until he got hired by New York, I thought Gerard Gallant was gonna go there to Seattle. I'm like, he's gonna do it again with another expansion team, and they're gonna be great. And then he got hired. I'm like, well, Rick Tockett's available. He's not the best, and John Tortorella is not going to be the guy to be an expansion team. Like, there's got to be someone else. And then today, while I was taking my pre-show nap, Dave Hakstol has been hired as the first head coach of the Seattle Kraken. Now, this is an interesting pickup, Thomas, at least from my eyes. He does have the experience. He coached for 4 years in Philadelphia, albeit it was not the best time to be a head coach for the Flyers. He did have success coaching at the University of North Dakota. Recently has been an assistant under Sheldon Keefe alongside Manny Malhotra and Paul McLean in Toronto. So he's been around a pretty good group with the Leafs, but now he's getting another shot to be a bench boss, and it's going to be for a team that's going to have a massive spotlight on it next season. What is your initial thoughts on Hakstol being the guy for Seattle?
Yeah, a little bit of surprise just because of the lack of success in Seattle, or the lack of success in Philly, just because the Vegas really conundrum puts added pressure on them. Vegas making a run to the Cup Finals in their first year, like, the expectation for Seattle should be, well, try not to be the worst team in the league. But because of Vegas, it's now, well, are people going to look at it as a failure of a season if they don't make it to the Cup Finals in their first year? Because that would be kind of ridiculous. So I never want to say it's you don't want to start your franchise with a bridge coach. You always hope that you're going to start your franchise with the coach that's going to be there for 10 years.
Right.
But it was a little bit of a curious situation given the fact that, two of the, never made it past the first round. So if Seattle was thinking long-term success with this coach, it's not there yet. But the always flip side of that is how many coaches do better at their second stop. They learned in their first stop, and now he can take what he's learned in his first stop and take that to a second stop. And so I'm sure that there's a little bit of that kind of logic and mentality into the hire.
Right. And I'm looking at his numbers right now. He was fired during the 18-19 season, which was his fourth year with the club. Surprisingly enough, I say not successful, but they did make it to the first two, like you mentioned. They made it in 16 and 18 to the playoffs, missed in 17. And, of course, 16 was the year that Steve Mason allowed that egregious slow-mo goal from the other end of the ice. But, he does have the experience, like you mentioned, and it is tough it's a tough spot because, we keep talking about, NHL, the GMs around the league are not going to be fleeced like George McPhee and them did with Vegas, and it's going to be tougher for Seattle. And, there's going to be good players available. It's not like the Kraken are going to get a bunch of bums like the Thrashers and Jackets and Wild used to back in the days. But it almost seems like, Vegas spoiled all of us. And what actually happens if what we all expected to happen to Vegas happens to Seattle? I'm not saying the NHL wants to expand anymore because now they have 32 teams. They can do 16 in each conference. I'm pretty sure everyone's going to love to keep that for as long as possible. But it's going to deter the league from ever really wanting to expand if they ever wanted to. I don't know. A 32 just seems like a lot as it is. And especially, if they're going to keep the playoff format at 16 and 8 on each conference. But it's so tough because this team may go 20 and whatever, Thomas, if they don't get the good players and if Hakstol can't get this group to play. That's why I'm thinking, hey, Gallant can do it. He did it. He did well in Florida with a younger group there. Huberdeau was still a rookie. Barkov was so unproven. And then he did it with the Golden Knights. Did he get a fair shake there at the end? I don't know, but they're doing okay with Pete DeBoer, I can tell. But it's tough because it's hard. I like Hakstol. I like what he did with the Fighting Hawks. Or I had to say Fighting Hawks because when he was at the end, it was the Hawks, Thomas, not the Sioux anymore, unfortunately. But he just never could find his footing, and that was a good team in Philadelphia. They still had Giroux and Voracek. Younger Giroux, and he still produced points like crazy. Now, yes, he didn't have a goaltender, which didn't help, but albeit
big problem.
Look at Nashville right now. They have a decent team, but they couldn't get us. Well, they couldn't get a save until UC Saros became the UC Saros that we all thought. But regardless, it's not going to be easy. And even I was looking at the article earlier from the Seattle Times. They said even when Seattle says, "Well, this is a surprise. We thought it was going to be someone else," and I'm like, if the city's apprehensive of their coach, hey.
I'm not gonna lie. I don't necessarily remember what Vegas's thought on Gerard Gallant was when that hiring was made.
Right.
I do seem to remember it. I think it was kind of. I don't remember it being ill received. I also didn't pick up the Vegas Journal or whatever it's called to see what that take was. But getting back to it, there's going to be a couple of things that's going to work into Seattle's favor, though, and one is. It's going to be a very interesting draft because you're right. GMs in the league now won't want to get fleeced, but there's also the cap situation, and COVID could end up benefiting Seattle. In what I mean by that is that since the cap isn't going up, you sign contracts thinking that the cap's going to go up every year.
Yep.
And that's going to be your cushion. Is that, a $7 million deal that, back in 2019 might be an overpay, but if the cap goes up by $7 million, you've kind of offset that. Well, now we're not getting that. So teams that need to get rid of players, even though it's said that it's going to be a steep cost, they may be, in some situations, somebody's going to be willing to pay it to open up a roster spot. I look at Tampa, and even though they've used the majority of their draft picks, the one first-round pick they have in the next 2 years, that with Tyler Johnson to get that $5 million off the books would be huge for them.
Right.
And the Seattle, and so it's not going to be as pervasive as it was before. But there is going to be, I think there's going to be some teams that need the cap relief and are going to pony up the draft picks. And then the other part is the cultivation of the chip.
Yeah.
Look at the stats for Carlson, Marchessault, and Riley Smith, the years before they get taken by Vegas, and then look at them since the Vegas thing. That line was, remember, Florida said, please take Marchessault and we'll give you Riley Smith. They created that line for them.
And Gerard Gallant's like, I remember these guys. Yeah, bring them back. Yeah. Bring them on in.
And that chip got created, and that was part of the reason why they were very good. A Hall of Fame netminder also helps, so they need to be smart with their goalie pick. But everybody did kind of have that misfits, nobody wanted us mentality. And if Hakstol can cultivate that, Seattle, I would be shocked if they're down around the 20-win mark, because I think that thought process from players is really going to be help boost them up.
Yeah, and there's like, that's the biggest thing in all this that's gonna save Seattle this year. And I don't say save Seattle, but really help them out is the fact that it's a flat cap. Because you mentioned, it's, I don't say inflation, but the cap goes up, numbers look better. Hey, if we were in quote unquote normal circumstances in 2 or 3 years, John Tavares' contract would be a good looking one, you would think.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the Leafs and cap circumvention experts Tampa Bay Lightning are in doo-doo. Now,
Vegas, how many games did Vegas play without 18 players this year?
Holy moly. Well, there was like 3, like they would have won the President's Trophy if they didn't play. I think there was a stretch in May. They played 2 or 3 in a row with 15 skaters.
Yeah. I mean, it's teams around the league. I mean, this is one of the few good things about being a Detroit fan right now is that the cap is not an issue in Detroit. There's not a lot of good players in Detroit, but the cap is not an issue. But the teams that are really good, there's already teams that are over the cap for next year. We were just talking about this on the In the Box podcast. We were looking one of the 4 teams, and I forgot who we were looking at, already over the cap and don't have enough players. Right. And I don't think it was Tampa. They are already over the cap with 17 players. So they need to get rid of or jettison or, either buy out or hope Seattle takes a contract. And $1 million contract isn't really going to be it. It's going to need to be a good player at a good contract cost. Right. And that's why, I'm holding off until the summer to do the who's Seattle going to pick, because obviously we got to wait for the protected list to come out, and because every team gets one player picked. Who knows who it's going to be? Obviously, had that trade not happened with Washington, all signs were pointing that it was going to be Anthony Mantha, because I don't know if Yzerman was going to want to protect him. But right. That's a discussion for a later date. But I really, it's an interesting move by Seattle, but this is a franchise. I listened to Hockey Central earlier. Justin Bohr made a good point. This is a franchise that is willing to do things differently. The way they've hired their analytical team, the fact that they're going to play in a barn that is, green, completely a very, energy friendly, not going to kill the earth kind of a building. And, Ron Francis, who is he's an older hockey guy. He's got age on him. He's played in the old days, but it seems like, because he really helped build that Carolina team. Well, he's not there now, but he's drafted a lot of the young stars that are there now. It's a great point.
So they have a good base. We'll see what Hakstol does. I think just maybe, and I've heard a lot of horror stories with Philadelphia. Oh gosh, who's their president? The one that fired Ron Hextall. It's not McFarland. It's Holmgren, Paul Holmgren. Yes, Paul Holmgren runs the team there, and I've heard some horror stories about him, so I can tell it's a little bit tough to maybe work in that organization, let alone play for that team. So maybe Hakstol will have a good run. Another coaching hire, jumping quickly to the women's game here, Angela James, the Hall of Famer herself, is going to be alongside Mark Joslin on the Toronto 6 bench in the National Women's Hockey League starting next year. So congratulations to her. Going to have an interesting season next year, a full season hopefully next year in the NWHL. We had some fun with Digit Murphy coming on the show and covering the women's game there. Hopefully we'll see how it is in a little bit longer of a year. Let's jump now to the game that happened last night. Mm-hmm. Isles beat Tampa, and I hate to keep tooting my own horn, but I literally was talking to my Aunt Pat last night, and she's like, "You think Tampa's going to win it tonight?" And I'm like, "No, there's no way the Islanders are going to lose their last game at Nassau Coliseum. There's a great chance they're going to lose tomorrow night in Tampa. But if you think they're going to lose that game, because I'm pretty sure, Thomas, when they went down 2-0, Barry Trotz in the TV timeout that followed, or right before, or right after the goal, he said, "Guys, if you want to walk out of here with your, without getting whacked by any of these fans, you will come back and win this hockey game, right?"
Yeah, it was to give up the second goal in a particularly backbreaking fashion when you had a 5-on-3, you're down one, you have a 5-on-3, you get a chance to tie it, you don't score. They generated some chances. I don't remember there being a ton of great chances, but I could be misremembering that. Either way, you don't score, and then it was pretty shortly after that. Minute 2 minutes after that, they get the Killorn goal to make it 2-0. That's backbreaking kind of stuff. That's tough stuff to come back from. So you got to give it to the Islanders and Trotz and that whole team for a mental toughness to come back. It was big because the three events happened pretty quickly because they were not down 2-0 for long, if I remember correctly. I believe Everly scored pretty shortly after Killorn did.
Yeah, I think it was right before they would have taken the second or maybe I don't remember if they took a TV time. I didn't watch the whole game wire to wire. I watched the majority of it because I'm pulling the morning shift this week at the radio station, so I'm on about 3 hours of sleep.
I gotcha. I hear you. We were actually recording during the game, so we're like half watching, half doing it. So I get it.
That's why I miss doing. That's why last year was so much fun. We do the 2 shows a week. We start at 6 o'clock, and there's a 5:30 game on or a 4 o'clock game on. We just watch it in here. It was fun. But
it was. I mean, it was, just to throw that in. Last year was very enjoyable with that, with some afternoon playoff hockey. I obviously, now that the world's kind of getting back to normal and people are at work, I agree and understand why they're not doing it. But it was fun for the year that we had it. That's for sure.
That's why I'm excited for the Olympics, man. I'm going to be at work at 9 a.m. I'm just going to have my laptop open and watch handball between Hungary and Turkey. I don't care. It's going to be fun to watch stuff all day. But no, jumping back to the game here, that goal by Everly. Well, first of all, but we'll get to the Islanders comeback here. Can we just talk about how Braden Point is probably the best playoff performer of the last, 3 or 4 years, excluding 2019? Like the last couple of years, he has been money for the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Well, I mean, this just in, good players make other players good. And he's done because there was a graphic showing most assists in over a 2-year playoff stretch, and third on the list after Gretzky was Kucherov. So you put Point and Kucherov together, 2 guys that both have the ability to both score and dish, and this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And good on him taking advantage. I'm not trying to take anything away from Braden Point. I don't want to take anything away from Nikita Kucherov because individually they're both very good. But when you put that level of talent together, it just unbelievable things are going to happen, like scoring in 9 straight playoff games.
Yeah.
That's, I think, when you talk to, and again, sorry to spin it local, but when you talk to Red Wings fans, that's what they want more than, a first round pick. They're like, who's going to be the 3rd round Braden Point?
Yep.
That's what everybody wants. Who can we get? Who's going to be that 3rd round guy that ends up being really probably, I think, conservatively a top 25 player in the league?
Yeah, that's a great question for our good friends over at Access Hockey MI, Rachel and Janae Anderson. I always talk to them like, oh man, what about the 1st round pick this year for the Wings? Who cares? Let's talk about their 6th round pick guy that no one can pronounce his name from Denmark. That's the guy we got to look at. But then again, that's to the point. Like a lot of the Red Wings, they always tout how Nick Lidstrom was not a high round pick. Pavel Datsyuk literally got picked up off the sidewalk at the end of the draft in '98. I mean, that's how they had to do it back in those days when they were consistently making the playoffs.
Yep. And so and now it's all teams are in Europe. That was Detroit's in at that time. They were kind of one of the first to be in Europe and be in Russia doing that scouting. Now it's those elite leagues are well watched by all, so they've lost their lone edge there. But Point's a North American kid. There was no European involved in that. So I think what people may have learned from Point and guys like Johnny Gaudreau is don't necessarily be afraid of the 5'6", 5'7", 5'8" guy. You don't necessarily need it. He doesn't have to be 6'1" at 18 to make it. And I think that's really the lesson to learn, that you're going to learn from Braden Point and players kind of like in that ilk.
And let's be honest. And now there is the whole thing with Johnny Hockey in the playoffs. Thankfully, Calgary didn't make it this year, so we didn't have to go down that road again. Just giving the numbers here, point leads in goals with 14. And like you said, he scored in 9 straight games. If he scores tomorrow night, as I knock on wood, he ties Reggie Leach for the most consecutive games with a goal scored in playoff history. And I believe that Leach did that in the 1976 playoffs, because that was the year he was the first Conn Smythe Trophy winner to ever win it for the losing team. That was the year they lost to Montreal. But you mentioned Kucherov, 22 assists, which leads all skaters, 27 points that leads all skaters. Second, I didn't realize this. Tampa has the top 6 scorers in the postseason. Now, granted, it helps when you win 8-0 in a playoff game, the worst playoff loss in the history of the New York Islanders. But Braden Point has 20 points. Kucherov has 27. Now, Kucherov, like I said, has 22. Victor Hedman has 15 assists. Like, there is a gap, and that's why Kucherov, leaving in the first period last night after the collision with Matthew Barzal, but let's be honest, Thomas, it was the cross-check thrown by Scotty Mayfield who ended up scoring the tying goal in the third period. And, you know, may call me an old fart, and you and I mean, you're a little bit older than I am, Thomas, but we kind of grew up in that 90s dead puck era where you could slash, you could hold them up. Yeah. Like the game, I mean, there's a reason why Sergei Fedorov looked like the fastest player in the world, because A, well, he was, and B, everyone else was moving in sand. Yeah. That's how the game was back in those days. Now we're getting to the point where it's like, okay, that's a hard cross check, but do you think people are overreacting today, Thomas? Because Mayfield caught him like the kidney. Yeah. You know, do you think if he doesn't leave the game, if he just cross checks him hard and, you know, in the corner, puts him like in his pant or in his chest protector and he's fine, he's just annoyed, maybe slashes him back, nothing else happens. But he leaves the game and is questionable for tomorrow night. Do you think that is why people are up in arms about the non-call on that cross check by Mayfield?
Well, so the two things to that. One is, you know, and I don't know if you have this as something to come across, like the officiating has been bad,
horrible. Like there's playoffs, I get it. There's playoff officiating.
Yep. And
we are through the floor now.
Yeah, and I feel okay because I don't really have an overwhelming dog or horse in this race. You know, the 4 teams, I'm kind of indifferent as to who ends up winning the cup out of these 4 teams. I don't really have a strong lead. I can make an argument for all of them. I can make an argument against all of them. So I feel like now is the time where I can safely bring up the awful officiating and awful because of its inconsistent. And again, balls and strikes, be consistent.
Yep.
And what's a penalty and what's not, be consistent. And it hasn't been. And you know, to their credit, they kind of established that what a penalty was going to be, and that was not going to be a penalty. Should it have been? I mean, I feel like in addition to the numbers in the head, that area is one of the most dangerous areas to get cross-checked because the padding is the lightest.
Yep.
But I also feel like the majority of the time, unless it's a boarding situation, which Kucherov wasn't really a board. Like Kucherov wasn't launched into the board. That's never going to. It was just good. Yeah, and it was enough where. Like it was like Kucherov was technically like almost like skating away from him and he hit him from the side. It wasn't knocking him into the board. So it didn't surprise me that there's not a penalty call. The up in arms, you know, I did some scrolling through social media and I personally didn't see, I'm sorry.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, I know. But I personally didn't see a lot of up in arms. And I think that's because NBC did such a job of putting it on him going to hit Barzal and that looking odd, and then after 4 or 5 replays of that, then they come back to, we also found this check by Mayfield.
Yeah.
And so you wonder, and the thing that goes through my mind talking this out is, all right, well, if he really got hurt in the Mayfield check, then why would he go try to lay another check into somebody?
Adrenaline probably.
And that's fair, but the moral of the story, to kind of get down to the point of the question, is getting upset that there was no penalty call. Yeah, sure. You pick a moment in any game and that the penalty wasn't called that you want. I get it. I wouldn't have expected a penalty and you never know when a guy's going to get hurt from a non-penalized play. So, but it's also, if that was the Wings in game 6 and we had a closeout opportunity and that happens to Larkin, who I guess would be the best player on the team right now, I'm probably screaming at you right now.
Right.
But for a neutral team, it wasn't boarding. And I feel like that's how those cross checks get called. Those get called to be boarding, not as just a cross check to the side, if that makes any sense.
Or if he was knocked down. I think if he gets knocked down, it's a different conversation as well.
That could as well. Yeah, that's a fair point.
And that's why I'm like, as angry as I am that the Leafs keep getting knocked out, at least in the first round, at least the second, third, and Stanley Cup Finals, I can just enjoy it and I don't have to have a heart attack or scream or whatever. But and that's why I think people are like, should the rule book be called and whatnot, and I've had this conversation many a times. Of course, it all it really got blown out of proportion with the Tim Peel saga and whatnot. Ironically enough, against the Red Wings, but I just remember saying, I'm like, listen, if you called the rule book, there'd be a penalty on every play, but then there is the players will learn. I'm like, have you ever watched a men's league shinny at Friday morning at 9 a.m. when there is no checking your body contact? It's boring AF. That's because you don't want that to happen. So it's like, it's a mixture of, yes, you want players to stay healthy and you don't want this stuff to happen, but it's gonna happen. I mean, I've seen literally guys get, sticks right up in the face. They keep going, shoot. Now, yes, the one that I remember is the Corey Perry high stick in game 4 or game 3, excuse me. Everyone remembers that because his face was blasted open to smithereens and it got not called. And yes, I'd be, because it's an injury then, and it was a definite infraction that should be called. It's so hard though to say, all right, that's just a cross check in a corner battle. He got hit in a weird spot. What can we do? Barzal going after a guy's face in game 5. Yes, that is a penalty and a fine. You pay that $5,000, even though it's literally 10 cents to a guy like Barzal. But that's neither here nor there.
It's because, I mean, and I don't remember what game it was, but there was I'm pretty sure it was actually Tampa and New York, where there was a puck battle along the board and just vicious, 3 a row right into the small of the back, not called. And even in the regular season, I don't think they get called because board battles are given more leeway than a lot of things. What I'm kind of a fan of, and say what you will about Pierre Maguire, because I know some love him, some hate him, and then there's everywhere in between. But he's been known to say, there's the establishment penalty, and it's true.
Right.
The first penalty of the game, if it's called early enough, you go, okay, that's the standard. Okay, you just told the guys what the standard of this game is going to be. And there are times where if you really watch after an early penalty and you get that standard, there can still be physical play in that game, but then it's not crossed. And I think that I'm not advocating a standard penalty just to get it done, just to have a penalty.
Wish I could call a penalty there on Nashville.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm not asking for that. But at the first point when you really get something that that's there, go ahead and make the call. Go ahead and make the call.
Yeah, and that's the hard part in all this. And there was a great article that was put on The Athletic. I forgot who wrote it. It wasn't Lecision. I don't think it was McIndoe. I think it was it was Sean McIndoe, I believe. Down goes Brown. He was asking, where is Wes McCauley? Because nobody's saying anything, because that's been one of the big absences. He worked through round 2. From what I read and what it was reported, that he's not injured, and I wonder what the deal is, because Wes McCauley is widely one of the most respected officials. Him and Kelly Sutherland are probably the 2 best, and I say Kelly Sutherland lightly. That's how good Wes McCauley is.
Sure. And
Kelly Sutherland he's not quite Carrie Fraser bad yet, but it's he's maybe this generation's Fraser. But you wonder if that's why you wonder if something's wrong with McCauley. You hope not. You hope he's doing well, because boy, we need a good officiating group for the Stanley Cup Finals, because and that's what people were screaming about. If Kucherov can't go for Game 7 and knock on wood, the Habs do the thing tonight and Saturday, all of a sudden, once again, the Habs are taking on a team without a star center, because Chandler Stevenson was out for Vegas in their series. Mark Scheifele decided to try to take the head off of Jake Evans, and John Tavares had an accident in the game 1 against Toronto. They haven't really faced a number 1 or like a 1-2 center punch, and all of a sudden Kucherov would be out for game 7 and be out for the finals if they make it there or whatever. And it'd be weird, but going into tomorrow night's game, Anthony Beauvillier, by the way, got the game-winning goal in overtime, just making Blake Coleman look like a bum with an awful pass. You never go up the middle in your own zone if there's a guy there.
Yeah.
Not much Vasilevsky could have done on that one. So we go to game 7 tomorrow night, Thomas. As crazy as it is, as emotional as that game was for the Islanders, like you see it all the time. You see it where teams can come back, i.e. the Habs coming back from 3-1 against Toronto. Yep. But there was so much that went into that game 6 for the Islanders at home in front of at the Collie. Chris, literally, okay, I'll say this right now. If you want to know how crazy that game was, I will listen to the radio, at least during the playoffs, of a radio broadcast of the game while I'm going to bed, especially if I have to be up early in the morning.
Sure.
And Chris King, friend of the show, I like to listen to him on Hofstra Radio, student Hofstra Radio. I love the guys that do the national games. That's cool. But Chris King, he's a New York guy. He's from New York. He's an Islanders fan forever, but he's not overbearing.
Okay.
He's not the Tampa guy. I don't even know his name, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Chris King, God bless him, that Anthony Beauvillier scored in overtime, because I didn't set my alarm for this morning. and Anthony Beauvillier scores, and Chris King goes off. But that was just the climax, and thankfully I was like, oh, hey, I probably set my alarm. Thank you, Chris King, for saving my butt there. But I remember, but that's how emotional that game was, because he got so into it. And now Chris King does that anyways. He's an emotional guy. But it was the fact that game was their game 7, I feel like that was their game 7. And you know what? If there's enough left in the tank tomorrow night, awesome. But I just don't see Tampa, while they have lost at home during these playoffs, and they've done it a few times, I just feel like they're going to bounce back a lot better. But now, granted, this is assuming Kucherov's in the lineup. Kucherov's out. I may be wrong, Mr. Biondo.
So, in a weird way, I almost feel like Kucherov in the lineup really shouldn't matter, because at the end of the day, they played 55 games without him, or 50, whatever the season was, and they ended up being third in their division. And the only reason why they fell to third was because they lost Stamkos for 20 games, too.
Yep.
So the Lightning are very, and let's face it, they went through the entire bubble last year without Stamkos and only had Kucherov. So
because Zach Bogosian was their best defenseman.
So they have experience playing without one of their superstars. So I will say that I don't think that would be the kiss of death. It obviously changes things, but it wouldn't be the kiss of death for the Lightning. Here's what I'll say about the Islanders, and what I actually thought that they had no shot yesterday, and I'll tell you why. Is look at the way the series kind of boiled down to game 4. Now, game 4 was, the first 3 games relatively even, both on the scoreboard, final scores. They get the 3-0 lead. They were pretty much run the first 30 minutes of that game. I think Tampa had like a 17-3 shot advantage.
Yep.
They have this explosion with the 3 goals, and they just dominate the rest of the period. They lead 3-0.
I think it was 17-9 were the shots in that second period. Yeah, something ridiculous like that.
And then they give up. Tampa runs them for like the first 6 minutes of the period. Then the Islanders come back and have some good shifts. Then Tampa nearly ties it. And then when they want to pull Vasilevsky, the Islanders pin them back. You get the unbelievable save by Pelech on the McDonough spinorama. And I just kind of felt like, how can you? That would have been fine. That I wouldn't have drawn any conclusions on. But then getting run 8-0, I was like, they ran out. That third period ran them out. Tampa hit a new gear. They're like, we're done fooling around. They cut the 2-0 lead. Tampa comes out, gets the 2-0 lead. So, they had scored 11 straight goals or 12 straight goals, because, 2 and then 8 and then 2. And you just feel like there's no chance. And then here you go. They come back one more time. The supposed killer, serial killer who was supposed to be dead in the movie, is back. Ghostface is back in Scream. And I just can't rule them out, because everything that you said tells me they should be done.
Yeah, right. And
they used the last little bit of energy now to come back. Well, I thought they used the last little bit of energy to hang on to game 4. and that wasn't the case. So, I mean, yes, if I was a gambling man, I'd put the money on Tampa, but I would have no surprise at all. Kucherov in, Kucherov out. I'd have no surprise at all if the Islanders won.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. I'm like, I would not be surprised if they won. I just, if I had to make a pick, I would say Tampa at home in Game 7. Now, it is interesting, a little bit of historical information for you kids at home. The last Game 7 in the Final Four of the Stanley Cup playoffs, do you remember what it is, Thomas?
Oh, good God. The last Game 7 in the Final Four of the playoffs. Well,
I'll say this. It was not the finals. It was not the finals. I'll give you a hint.
Wasn't it Dallas beating Vegas last year?
No, that was 5. Remember that? That was Dallas ran them.
Yeah, that was a buzzsaw. Yeah,
it was a close series, but Dallas was able to get.
Yeah, Game 1. Yeah. Oh boy. So in the Final Four, so it wasn't that. In 18, or 19? Did the Blues need 7? I don't think the Blues needed 7. Oh, so Game 7 of the 19 Cup Finals.
Right. The one before that though was 2018 when Barry Trotz and the Washington Capitals beat the Tampa Bay Lightning at Amalie.
I see where you're.
Yeah,
I see where you're.
So Trotz, the last time this happened, the Bolts lost on the road or at home to Barry Trotz. Now, yes, that was that was the Washington team that was going to win that year. I'm happy they did, so I don't have to worry about harping Ovi for never winning the cup or whatever. But history likes to repeat itself, Thomas. It's just going to be tough if they can do it again, or if the Islanders can do it again and play maybe a couple more games there at the Coliseum. It would be fun, but it's going to be tough.
It is. There's no doubt about it. It's absolutely going to be it's going to be a tough ask to go into Tampa. But you bring up a good point where recent history shows that Tampa, the big players in Tampa haven't really changed much in 3 or 4 years. Yeah. It's been Kucherov and Stamkos and Hedman and Vasilevsky. They lost to Columbus. They were on that 18 team. So there's some memories there that they needed. And yes, they obviously got through them and survived them and got to the Stanley Cup and won the Stanley Cup last year. But you never know when that stuff's going to creep up. But so it'll be interesting. Again, like you said, I don't know. I would be very boring because I think I would pick the home team in Game 7 no matter what. If I had to make a pick, but there's no exception with this. I would pick Tampa, but no surprise if the Islanders get it done.
No question about it. Folks, we'll take a quick break here on 12 Ounce Sports. When we come back, Thomas will stick around with us. We'll get you ready for tonight's game. Montreal can do the thing tonight. Well, not the thing, but a thing that could lead to the thing. And they get ready for Game 6 at home at Centre Bell against the Vegas Golden Knights. We'll take a quick pause. We'll be back with more of the Kuehl Show here on 12 Ounce Sports. And welcome back to the Kuehl Show, everyone. Tyler Kuehl here alongside Thomas Biondo. I had to see where the screen was at. I'm back here from In the Box Podcast. I know my nameplate's under him. Thomas Biondo is not Tyler Kuehl. Thomas is that guy. I am Tyler. So just look at my nameplate, or it's over here. Look at the nameplate and then, diagonally cross it over to me. And I say that, and people that listen on the podcast form right now, the Kuehl Show, where they listen on Apple, Google Podcast, Spotify, whatever, they're like, we don't see anything, Tyler. Yeah. You're literally wasting our time. Listen, I waste your time because you're listening to this podcast. Let's be honest.
I got the Google Meet platform up, so I got you over me right now. We're not even next to each other. So
that's true. Well, I had to make sure because listen, Thomas, if we go deep down narcissistic Tyler, you know for a fact that you would like if he was in control, you would be the little icon in the corner and it would just be me talking to you.
Yeah.
You know exactly that's how it would be.
Absolutely.
So we just broke down Islanders and Bolts Game 7. We did that first for you folks. So if you want to catch the replay on the Keel Show YouTube channel tomorrow, you can, or your favorite podcatcher as well. You can catch that first because obviously if you're watching the replay or listening to the replay, the game that we're going to talk about right now live here on 12 Ounce Sports is going to be over with. Now, granted, you may like our conversation. In that case, thank you very much. But like I said, if you missed that one here on 12 Ounce Sports, don't worry, folks. Just go check it out on the replay tomorrow. Also, we did talk about Dave Hakstol being hired by the Seattle Kraken and our takes on that. Check that out on the replay as well, or your favorite podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts, excuse me. Because apparently podcatcher is not a word, Thomas. I thought it was in the Oxford Dictionary, but I guess not, because everyone says wherever you get your podcasts. I'm like, what's wrong with podcatcher? It sounds, dare I say, it sounds catchy.
Call Webster, get him on the phone, and see if you can't get a word created.
Well, Webster is very Oxford's more willing. Like Oxford is the connection between the Urban Dictionary and Merriam-Webster. Webster's like, nope, it's got to be a legitimate word, and we got to be told that by the Ivy Leaguers. Oxford's like, there's a guy that I forgot where I found, looked this up, or I saw it on a.
This is only something that Tyler knows. I guarantee this.
There's literally a group of people, their jobs that work at the Oxford Dictionary is to go on to the tabloids and the People magazines and whatever and find words that are not in there and get definitions for them to put in the Oxford Dictionary. There's actually a job. And it would be painful because I guarantee there's some days where people are just dumb writing stuff and they're just using every basic word ever. But, I'm pretty sure, for you Mean Girls fans, I don't know if the definition of fetch that was used in Mean Girls is in the Oxford Dictionary, but it may be.
I love that you went Mean Girls. You're on a roll.
I am
breaking down the Oxford Dictionary and using fetch to do it.
Using
Good
fetch.
On you, man.
Fetch may never happen, but it may be in the Oxford Dictionary, so I'm pretty sure that is a win. Let's jump in here. Kuhl Quest, thank you guys so much. Saying big game tonight, big game for Canada as a whole. The Montreal Canadiens. Canada's team, despite what Toronto fans think about the CN Tower and Niagara Falls getting lit up in red, white, and blue colors, they have a chance to go to the Stanley Cup Finals if they win tonight at the Bell Center against the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, this was a series that after Robin Lehner won Game 4, and I say Robin Lehner won Game 4 because sure. I don't see any possible reason why Vegas wins if he doesn't make some big saves there early. Mm-hmm. They win Game 4, but then they go back for Game 5 in Vegas, and it's like, how can you lose this game? Now, Thomas, there was a little bit of a controversial decision. Now, granted, Lehner starting Game 4 was controversial. Mm-hmm. Fleury going back in net in Game 5 was even more controversial, given how Lehner played. But watching that game back, I don't think Fleury played bad in the 4-1 loss to the Cavs.
I didn't really either, and it's funny that you mentioned that because we were talking about how in the 8 goals that the Islanders gave up, we didn't think that there was one bad goal in that.
Yeah,
and that was kind of how I felt kind of the same way with Fleury. It was a gutsy move. I mean, I feel like anytime you go with a goaltender, you make a goalie switch, the goaltender that you bring in plays well, steals a game for you. And then to go back, it's a risky move, but that's the thing. When you have supreme confidence in 2 netminders, you can get away with that. And
right.
and though it seems odd to us, I mean, they have gone back and forth with those 2 guys pretty much the entire season.
Yep. Leonard was hurt early on. Leonard was hurt early on in the playoffs. That's why Fleury was the go-to guy because it probably would have been Leonard. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know because Fleury finally got nominated for the Vezina, so he might have gotten that opening night. But that's the thing; it would have been a real debate, and I don't think anybody would have been mad either way. The situation as it boiled down was weird. Again, I don't really feel like you're pointing at Fleury as the fault. Again, if you watch the broadcast of NBC, and then they did it again last night, just kept showing it. Mark Stone trying to create something shorthanded, turning the puck over after gaining the blue line, leading to an odd man rush. I mean, that can't happen. That just can't happen. And I respect what he's trying to do, but that's a kind of play that just you can't give up, and led to the odd man rush. And I think that was the third goal, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
That was the third goal. It was I believe that led to the third goal, which was obviously backbreaking. And I mean, this whole series really is almost, it's very weird, but it's simple to boil down. Is the fact that the Vegas power play has been useless.
0 for 13.
And really, the loss of Stevenson really created a lot of issues for that Vegas roster, because Pacioretty and Stone have looked lost in the 3 games without him, because they were going with Roy, who should be a third line center, and Tuck, who should be a winger, as his center iceman. And it just, they have not looked good since.
It looks like, and I don't know if you can remember this too well, but the 17 final when Ryan Johansson got hurt for Nashville during their playoff run, and Colton Sissons was the first line center for the Preds against Sidney Crosby. The fact that series went 6 games, looking back on it now, was because Pekka Rinne played well at home, and Carrie Underwood was giving good juju to her husband's team. That's literally how that series played out.
I don't remember Johansson getting hurt. I do remember Pekka Rinne played 6 bad minutes. He played 3 bad minutes in game 1, and Pittsburgh scored 3 times, and he gave up 3 and played 3 bad minutes in game 2 and gave up 3 goals. Turn those around. If he makes better saves, Nashville probably wins that series, but that's neither here nor there. Or
a quick whistle too in game 6. But you know what? Peyton Turner does not remember that at all.
Sure, there's that too. But yeah, it's, for all the cap issues that Vegas has and all the bodies that they've run in and out of that team, it's kind of funny, maybe not funny, that a number 1 center is still on their wish list.
Yep.
And they have absolutely no money to go out and get it.
And that's why I think to myself, I'm like, you know what? Pietrangelo's played better this postseason than he did during the regular season, but that's 8 years, Thomas. It's 8 years of an older Pietrangelo.
I had that same thought. I think I'm sure a lot of hockey people had that thought of that. What defensively, that wasn't your problem. That's nearly never. Yes, you have this choking forecheck when it's going, but there was an abundant. To me, there was an obvious hole in your roster, and it wasn't anywhere defensively. It was who's centering Pacioretty and Stone, and I think that they answered that question by signing Pietrangelo, and that was kind of a weird thing.
Yeah. No, it's hilarious we say that, but Nicholas Waugh scored the game winner in game 4.
And Pietrangelo's probably been their best player throughout the playoffs run.
Yeah, no question. Like I said, that's why I say I watch him and I'm like, you know what? Because I grilled every time Pietrangelo came up on the show. I'm like, this was the dumbest thing Vegas could have done. Like when he got embarrassed by McKinnon at the outdoor game there at Lake Tahoe, when he said, "Oh, this is bad," and I'm like, well, yeah, because you can't stop the best player in the league, even though you're one of the best defensemen and one of the highest paid defensemen in this league. Now, that's not Erik Karlsson, but that's another conversation for San Jose when we actually get to a point where they're worth talking about again. Right. But, this is, we go to game 6 tonight in Montreal. That game in general, like, they were outshot 27-25, Thomas. You could not tell that they were getting brutally outplayed, though. And now this is mainly because Carey Price never seems like he's ever flustered anymore. That's just the style that he's played, which is so much fun to watch for me. I've idolized it, can never master it, hence why I'm doing this now. But that's like but it never looked like Montreal was getting outplayed. Now, like I said, Carey Price was playing well. I ended up making 26 saves in the win. But Montreal limited the high danger scoring chances on the road, which is something that doesn't happen too often with the Habs, especially at least in this series.
So you kind of, there really is with hockey, and I think what you've seen in the Colorado series versus this series is the importance of, sometimes it's not how you're playing, it sometimes is who you're playing. Vegas was more equipped to get into a track meet, and that's what Colorado wanted. Cale Makar was as likely to be below the red line as he was at his blue line for offense in the offensive zone. And what happens if it's turned over? Vegas could run, and that was their strength. Montreal isn't going to play that game.
No.
Weber and Petrie, they can be offensive, but they're not going to be spending shifts below the red line. They're going to stay home. They're going to be smart. Their forwards are going to back check. It's much tighter for Montreal, and I think that's what is kind of squeezing Vegas into this. That's what's creating the problem. They could race end to end with Colorado. That's how they beat them 4 straight.
Yeah,
Montreal's going to be like, they know, okay, Carey Price is our strength. If we pack it in around this guy, we have a chance, and that's what they're doing. And I think that's why Vegas is struggling.
And it helps that the kids are playing well too. And when I was talking to my aunt last night, she's been watching hockey forever. I said this, and I may have sounded a little overzealous when I said this, but I feel like there's some merit to it. Nick Suzuki has the tools, and he's really showed me in these playoffs that he can be the next Patrice Bergeron. He can be. I said yesterday that he is the next, but I'm like, you know what? He can be, because he's really shown me that he can be a two-way center. He can produce offense. He can give. I mean, let's be honest. If all I had to do was give Cole Caulfield the puck, I'd pick up a few assists myself. Jeez,
sure.
He's the Hobie Baker Award winner for a reason.
Yep.
But he's played well in his own zone, because I'm pretty sure Dominic Ducharme, even from afar now, is probably saying, listen, you can score. You showed that. You can do that in junior. You show it now. Let's play in our own zone. And he's developed that over the season, and it's really been highlighted in these playoffs.
Yeah, and Suzuki, and what Montreal, too, is doing right so much better than Vegas is 4 lines that are dangerous enough to score. Vegas, if they get into a situation where they need, Roy and Reeves, or Ra and Reeves and Kolazar to get goals, they're in trouble. But when you look at Montreal, and I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to try to portray something that isn't true. I picked Toronto to beat Montreal in that first round series, and
I didn't pick, but I was hoping that was the case.
You can find audio of of me picking Toronto, but what I always did say is I don't necessarily get how Montreal was so average, because they're tough to play against. They have an all-world goaltender. They got 4 defensemen that can play and have played in overtime between overtime games, 28 to 32 minutes a night. And now they've got 4 lines where you're not beating Deneau in the face-off circle. And when you do, Letkinen's playing just as good defensively.
Yep.
Suzuki and Caulfield and Anderson are dangerous, but also responsible. The old, the kind of, I go 2 goats and a kid line with Perry and I Armia isn't even really a kid, but Perry and Stahl, they chip in, they look good, they press, and Kotkaniemi and his line has done a good job. This is a full team, 18 guys, maybe just 17, because I know their last defensive pair isn't playing a lot, but that full team attack and that full team approach, I've kind of said I thought Montreal had a better roster than what they showed. I didn't think they were going to be Toronto, but I liked their roster more than what it showed. And sure enough, starting in Game 5 against the Leafs, it's shown up and worked out for them.
I mentioned this a couple of times since then. When we had Kyle Bukauskas on from Hockey Night, he said the Canadiens are going to go as far as Carey Price takes them, which is true.
I agree.
That's why I was literally terrified during Game 4, because it was a Game 4 or Game 5 in 14. It's one of those 2 games where Chris Kreider ran into Carey Price because he forgot how to skate. Not because he got pushed in. I don't want any Rangers fans telling me otherwise. Chris Kreider just doesn't know how to skate. And that was the end of it. So I was waiting for that in this series. I'm knocking on wood that it doesn't happen, but he's been efficient. But the team in front of him has been playing well too, because that 14 team, while it was Carey Price, MVP caliber Carey Price, all-world goaltender, they had guys like Dale Weiss, putting up big goals, and you had Max Pacioretty was on that team, and that was a real good team. The same thing with this year's too. But I think the biggest key that I don't say we're not talking about or people are ignoring, Montreal, the word need and score and first, those 3 words need to go together in the same sentence, because this team, they have scored first. Could you guess how many times they've scored first in the postseason, Thomas?
Well, I'm looking at your cheat sheet, so I'm going to check.
Dang it.
I'm going to trust that you're right, and I'm going to go with they have scored first 12 times in this postseason.
That is true. They are 10-2 when scoring first. Their 2 losses, Game 4 against Vegas, the game when Robin Leonard stole it the rest of the way, and I believe it was Game 3 against Toronto. No, it was game 2 against Toronto. That was the first game Toronto won in that series. They won 10-2.
Yes.
1-3 though when they have not. The one win was game 3 against Vegas. The come from behind win there. So it's so weird to think. And I remember I mentioned this, and I'm like, man, if Vegas scores first, it's going to be tough. But then I get proven wrong. But it's like Montreal, they play that game where it's all right. We have 20 minutes. Let's get after it. Yeah. Get the lead, because like you mentioned, how like Petrie, Weber, they're not going to go up and down the ice like madmen. They're going to be like, all right, let's sit back. And if they get that first goal when they don't need to open things up, because that's what happened in game 1 of this series against Vegas. Shea Theodore scores first, and Montreal's like, crap, now we got to try to take chances.
Chasing the game.
Exactly. Yeah, Montreal's not good at that. So if the Canadiens score first tonight, I'm not saying it's a shoo-in that they're going to win, but this is a team that loves to play with the lead, and teams that win that big silver trophy, the 35-plus pound trophy at the end of the year, Thomas, they know how to close games out and play with leads no matter how big or how small.
Yeah, and I mean, that's it in a nutshell, Tyler. I mean, it really is when it comes down to it. And it goes back to what I said about, the versus Colorado, Vegas versus Colorado versus Vegas versus Montreal, is that style of play. It's you will excel if you can dictate your style, what you're good at. That's one of the wonderful things that the Islanders do. They're going to run you through the board. They're going to make life hell on you. It's one of the good things Tampa do. We're going to try to finesse by you. It's what Montreal does is, okay, we need to score first. And if we do score first, we are just going to go into full shutdown mode. And we'll take our chances if they show up, but we're going to go into full shutdown mode because we know we've got a goaltender that can win a hockey game 1-0 or 2-1.
Because I'm trying to think now. They score first. Montreal did in game 5. How many guys do you think were in the zone for the second and third goals? Because I know Caulfield's was a power play goal, but it was on a rush.
It was off the rush.
And Stahls just came off the bench. And I'm like, well, there are even 3 Canadians in the zone. Like, they're not.
No, they were in the middle of a change, so they probably weren't.
They were probably sitting like, all right, we're in a change. Stahl, yeah, you go ahead and forecheck. The rest of us will just sit back here in the neutral zone, because during the second period too. And I don't think there's a game that goes by, Thomas, that we don't mention the long change in the second period. I know I always mention at least once, but that's just how the game is.
Yeah, well, it's that important. At the end of the day, it really is that important.
Why do you think the Olympic ice is so bad? Because that's an extra 5 or 6 feet. It's a game changer.
Well, I mean, go back to what was it? The game. It was the game 4 with the Islanders and Lightning. I believe that there were 3 times in that second period where the Lightning got pinned for 2+ minutes in their own zone.
Oh, was it Bogosian or Hedman that had like a 3-minute shift or something ridiculous? Because Olczyk, like, there was a play going on. Kenny Albert would say something, but after everything Kenny said, Olczyk was like, he's still out there. I think it was, or it wasn't Bogosian.
You said Bogosian. It
wasn't Bogosian. Cripes.
Was it Sergachev?
It could have been Sergachev. Gosh, I couldn't. That's the hard part, is I'd have to go into a deep dive on either NHL.com or Hockey Reference or whatever to find like shift by shifts, because now that is the one thing. NBC's going out with a bang, Thomas, because they will do that where they will show how long guys have been on the ice. Like, they'll show the 5 that are out there, because I don't know if they do this at Little Caesars. I know they do it in Toronto, where if you look underneath the Jumbotron, if you're sitting low enough, you can see the lines that are the guys that are on the ice and how long they've been out there and what their total is. I don't know if they do that at LCA.
I do not know. They definitely do the game total. I don't know. I don't remember if they do the shift total.
Right.
I'm not saying you don't. I'm just saying I don't remember if they do the shift total or not.
Yeah. Now, granted, half the time when I'm watching the game at LCA, I'm usually looking, at the ice. Except when I was at the GLI, where literally the press box is so high, literally I can see over the top of that big old Jumbotron. But
I can't wait to get back into that building.
Next year, man. Next year, Thomas.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. If I don't find a job, I'm just gonna go. You know what? I may do it. If I don't find a job next year, Thomas, 32 barns. And the border's gonna be open.
There you go. That's a good use of your wife's money.
Hey, I'm making a good chunk of change writing now, so I can literally quit my job at the radio station, which pays me.
And there you go. So then what? So let's stop this talk about you not having a job, because clearly
you
have.
I mean, like, you know what I mean, like a broadcasting job.
I know.
We're live outside Centre Bell in Montreal for another episode of oh my gosh, a traveling road show. It's gonna be sick. It's gonna be great.
Yay! Go Tyler!
Thomas, you'll be there for the Detroit show. I don't know where we're going to stand outside because I'll be honest with you, it's getting better in Detroit, but it's like I don't know if I want to stand on the sidewalk and do a show and people walk by because.
But I got Chevy Plaza. They created something.
Okay.
Just, people don't. You don't think of it yet because they haven't had the big, the successful team to show the packed house out there.
That's true. You know what we'll do? Even though Little Caesars is big, we'll do it right outside. We'll do it in the middle. We'll do the Detroit Red Wings show. Whoever they play, doesn't matter who. Because I'll be honest, the way the schedule would have to work, it wouldn't matter which team plays. But
sure.
we'll go to Detroit, and we'll just to be dumb and stupid, we'll do it outside of Comerica in front of the big tiger out front. Just to be dumb. Go. Just to be completely dumb. Like guys, the game is over there, but we're over here.
Yeah, you just need to keep finding where you find famous landmarks in cities, and that's where you do it. Don't worry about doing it at the rink, doing it at the famous landmark in the city.
Screw it. No, we're doing it on the Ambassador Bridge. No, we're just gonna stop traffic.
That's one we're not doing.
Everyone through the tunnel.
You've just got me out. Yeah, I'm out.
But Thomas, Game 6 tonight, 8:00, so in a little less than an hour from now. Do we have a Game 7? Do we have 2 Game 7s? I mean, literally every show that we've had up until this point has been both series at 1-1, both series at 2-2. Do we see both series at 3-3?
I'm gonna go no. I think Montreal does this.
You think Montreal does the thing?
Yeah, and it's because Vegas doesn't have a move to make. They can't insert anybody into the lineup. They don't have. There's nothing that can save them. It's just got to be themselves. And like I said, even if Stevenson he played Game 5 and it didn't make really that much of a difference. They didn't look that much better offensively. I would feel a lot better if I knew who was scoring first. But at the end of the day, I think the Habs get it done.
Leonard is in net for Vegas tonight, so there is that. I'm sure that doesn't really shock anybody, just because of the fact that And I'm not saying, like I said, Fleury didn't play bad in game. He didn't play bad in Game 5. He didn't play bad in Game 3. He just had an awful giveaway that ended up costing his team. What's he supposed to do on a 2-on-0? Let's be honest.
I mean, you're exactly right, and that's the crazy thing about this series is that it could literally be over for both teams. Both teams could have won this series if Vegas holds on there and takes a 2-1 lead. They very easily could win Game 4 and then be closing out Game 5 or be trying to close out tonight.
Yep.
In Montreal, on their end, okay, the Game 1 loss, but they played very well in the Game 3 loss or the
Game 4 loss. Yeah.
Game 4 loss. Thank you.
Yeah. When Leonard literally stood on his head at times.
Right. They could have damn near closed up the series on their end on that game. So it's been a wild series. Normally wild series tend to go 7 because the unpredictable happens, but I'm going to go with what my gut tells me. My gut tells me it's going to be Montreal.
I've seen boring series go 7. I've seen 4-game series that have been exciting. Heck, Columbus beating Tampa was exciting, mainly because we did not think that was going to happen.
But the games were exciting, to be fair. I do remember those games being exciting.
Yeah, even with Victor Hedman at 50% the entire time.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you just don't know what's going to happen. And I remember I mentioned this last Thursday with Nick Alberga. If the Islanders can do it tomorrow and the Habs can do it against Vegas, it's going to be one of the worst ratings in the States for a Stanley Cup final in a long time. But Canada is going to go through the roof.
And you are going to get a New York market, so it might not be as bad as you think.
But the Long Island market, though,
I know.
It ain't. If it were the Rangers, well, if it's the Rangers, like I said, there's no problem. If it was Vegas, there's no problem. Tampa, Florida market, no problem.
Don't forget hate watching. Rangers fans could watch to want to see their hate a team that they hate implode.
They just want them to see them lose in the Stanley Cup Finals, something they have not been to since 1994. 2014. Duh. Good Lord. Now I say this, I'm like,
I'm sorry. Yes, haven't won since.
They haven't won since '94. But then again, the Islanders haven't been to the finals since losing to this kid named Gretzky and this team named the Edmonton Oilers back in 1984. So
nothing they should feel bad about.
Exactly. We did have a vote today, by the way, for the Habs and Knights. Not too many votes. However, it was just too ironic and too stupid. 67% voted for the Montreal Canadiens. So yeah, it's nice to have a little salt in the wound. Even though I'm pulling for Curry Price, you don't need to do that, Habs fans or hockey Twitter to me. But we have been chatting here today with Thomas Biondo, the captain of the TKS 5 Timers Club. Thomas, thank you once again. Make sure you guys check out In the Box podcast. Where do you guys find the In the Box? All of them?
Yeah.
So where you find us, you will listen to us, and then you go listen to them.
Spotify, Google, Spotify, Google Play, and the App Store. Is that right? Those are the big ones.
Apple Podcast.
Podcast.
Yeah, and then all of the weird third-party sites that you find or whatever. Be sure. They record on Monday nights just like we do, so you can have a nice busy Tuesday to get your hockey knowledge in flux. Thomas, thank you once again. Make sure you follow him, guys, at Thomas Biondo1, the number 1 on Twitter, at Biondo TV on the Instagram. And, of course, folks, make sure you follow us on the social medias at The Kuehl Show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We will be back on Monday talking about the Stanley Cup Finals because it will be done by Saturday no matter what. Even if Vegas forces it there, their Game 7 is Saturday. Tomorrow, Tampa, New York. It's going to be interesting. Thomas, we'll catch you on down the road. We may need you for the finals. We'll just have to wait and see. But
thanks for having me.
But for the rest of you, thank you very much for watching this episode of The Kuehl Show. We'll see you all next time. Goodbye.